Howdy SEO Moz fans, welcome to another edition of Whiteboard Friday. This week we're talking about the very exciting topic of Search Suggest, also known as Google Instant or Google Suggest. And Bing actually does this as well, so do search engines like DuckDuckGo. Even places like Quora and Wikipedia are starting to do this so that as you type a query, right? So I started typing, does anyone? And Google has suggested things to me that perhaps I might want to search for. Curious things like, does anyone still use MySpace? Well, maybe I'm interested in that. Does anyone use MySpace anymore? Well, thank you, Google. That's quite repetitive of you. Does anyone live in Greenland? Well, yes, there are at least a few people. Does anyone use Google+? Nope, nobody. I'm just kidding. Hopefully, at least all of you watching Whiteboard Friday are using Google+. These suggestions are interesting from two perspectives. Number one, they're interesting because sometimes negative things can show up in here as you start searching for a business name. You know, things like scam or fraud or, I don't know, illegal activity or criminal or something like that. Bad stuff can come up. And occasionally, SEOs will receive calls from clients or potential clients seeking to have that altered. Or you might be trying to control the reputation for your own business or your own name, making sure that Search Suggest is controlled so that the queries that show up in here, the phrases that are suggested by Google, are good ones. The second thing, of course, that's really, really interesting is thinking about this from a branding perspective. So I'll give you an exciting example. For years and years, if you started to search, right, let's make our own little search box here. If I started to search for SEO, the first thing that would come up, at least in most of the United States, was Seoul, Korea, right, which is the capital there, and the most common flight destination. Now, that's interesting, but there were other things that would come up, SEO book, SEO guide, and then as SEO Moz started to become a brand, SEO Moz would become suggested in there, which we thought was tremendously exciting, and we really liked that. And then over time that actually moved up, and today, at least in most of the United States, although interestingly enough, not Seattle, because we have a lot of Korean Americans here in Seattle who fly back and forth to Seoul, and I think we have a direct flight as well. So Seattle has a lot of searches for Seoul compared to most of the rest of the country. SEO Moz is now the number one suggested result under SEO, which resulted when that shift happened, you could actually see the search traffic. You know, if this was the line in our analytics for how much traffic we were getting for our branded keyword, that actually shot up within a couple days of that becoming the number one term. It went from, if I remember correctly, this was about a year and a half, 2 years ago, it went from number 3 to number 1, which is super cool, really, really interesting stuff. This Search Suggest is influenceable, and it is something that over time, through branding, you can change the words and phrases that show up here. Let's talk about the signals that Google's using inside of Search Suggest. So first off, query volume. If lots and lots of people start searching for does anyone else watch Whiteboard Friday? How about we all search for that? Wouldn't that be cool? Should we do a test? Let's do a test. Oh, it's a great idea. All right, so try searching, does anyone watch Whiteboard Friday? I tell you what, I will tweet some links and share some stuff on Google+, and we'll see if we can't get some people searching for this particular phrase. And we'll track how many. I'll use a bit.ly link and share it. In fact, I'll put the bit.ly link in this Whiteboard Friday so that we can actually test this. And what you'll probably see is with a few hundred to a couple thousand searches from across the US, about 50% of SEO Moz's traffic is here inside the US, folks who watch Whiteboard Friday, and the other 50% is from other countries all around the world, which is awesome. What you'll see is that may start to show up inside of these results over time. Now, this is happening because query volume is something that the engines look at and they see, hey, people are searching for this, let's start to suggest it. Now, be very careful because Google did in fact have even a particular relationship with Amazon's Mechanical Turk a few years ago. There was a representative at Mechanical Turk who was contacted by Google, and Google said basically, hey, we want to know if anyone's asking for Search Suggest, influencing, that kind of thing. Google's gotten a lot more sophisticated about this, so you can bet that today they're probably using things like unique, verifiable accounts, independent users. You know, if I go and search from my computer 100 times, that's probably not going to make a big difference. But if 500 people all around the Seattle area all start searching, you can bet that Does Anyone Watch Whiteboard Friday will probably show up pretty highly in these results, at least in this geographic area. Which gets to the second point, the second input, and that is the geography of the searchers themselves. Now, interestingly, we actually ran a test here at SEO Moz a while back where I had about 1,000 people around the world search for a phrase, and that was travel blog, and then the word, my wife's blog, actually, everywhereist. I wanted to see if search suggest actually had an influence on ranking position. So essentially, does putting the brand name here, will that bump up the rankings of a site? It did not appear to, at least in this example, but what it did do was show me that very quickly this would pop into search suggest, and it popped into geographic areas where I had lots of followers or friends who searched for that, which is really, really interesting. Suggests strongly that the geography is influential, but that you don't necessarily need that many users searching for a particular phrase in order to get it included in here. Now, obviously there's black and gray hat things you could do with this. Don't do that. Don't try it. You're going to get in trouble. Google obviously does some scrubbing of these results anyway, so that's going to get caught very quickly. But if you can naturally do it through branding, through product naming, through social sharing, through content marketing, through all sorts of forms of inbound marketing, then this is something you can change. Finally, and interestingly, the keyword phrase mentions, and what I mean by mentions is actual mentions on the web. So particularly in news and fresh content, seeing the word, right, seeing the word travel blog everywhereist appear, or seeing the word does anyone watch Whiteboard Friday appear. So this video, for example, as this blog post goes out, and the phrase does anyone watch Whiteboard Friday appear across the web as RSS feeders pick it up and people start searching for it and all those kinds of things, that will influence the search suggest as well. I am betting that Google does something where they verify both geographically and through unique users, and they look for keyword phrases and mentions, right? So if something's being searched for but no one's talking about it on the web, that might be a little odd. But if something is in the news, especially in news headlines, and it's popular, it's in lots of sources, and it's getting search volume, then it's probably going to make its way into search suggest. Hopefully this Whiteboard Friday has helped you to understand how Google's doing this stuff, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care.